like that. You don't want that.
No, it's fine. I just was kind of chaotic and like awkward, so it's okay. Okay. So what is your favorite thing about Newcastle?
I would say my favorite thing about Newcastle and being part of a small town, small community our size, is that when there's a need in the community, whether it be, accident, a tragedy of some kind, someone going through a real difficult time, the whole community comes together and pitches in for that family, to support that family. Sometimes there are meal trains, sometimes there are people offering to help transport small children, letters of encouragement. So I think that's a really cool thing about being part of a small town that you don't necessarily get in a large city. My husband and I both have been on the receiving end of it back when we were first married, and then we've gotten to be a part of that, giving back to the community over the years. And it's a huge blessing to be both on the receiving end, but especially on the giving end, because there are plenty of needs in our town, and it's a really nice time when you see the whole community come together to support one of its own.
Yeah, I think that's great because I know when my mom had my brother and she was on bed rest, a lot of people came and gave us meals, and it was really nice because
absolutely,
it was
absolutely
it was the greatest. Who is someone you feel has impacted the community before you?
I would say probably the one that comes to my mind the most is a gentleman named O.C. Moore. And Mr. Moore used to be the assistant superintendent at Newcastle Schools, but while he was phenomenal at his job, one of the things he did was he kind of set Newcastle up to be a community that was very service-minded. He started a Riley Hospital fund drive every year. Like, we did things, and we're talking 30 years ago. We did 10-mile walk-a-thons around Baker Park on the weekends to raise money. He organized them. He was a very big idea thinker. And I think he was very active in his church, but he positively impacted the community, not through just the schools, but that was his venue that he started with. But he developed all sorts of programs that still exist today. Just a wonderful man that had a huge vision for what Newcastle could be and the service it could provide to other people.
Yeah, did you live in Newcastle when you were younger?
Now, I grew up in Hagerstown, so for me, moving from Hagerstown to Newcastle, this is the big city for me. So I grew up in a smaller town than Newcastle, but my dad taught at Newcastle High School for years, so I was kind of a little bit in the Newcastle community before I moved back to town, but kind of on the fringes.
Oh, I think I remember the story about the tractor, when you brought tractors to school.
Yes, we did. We used to drive tractors to school.
What is one thing you would change about Newcastle if you could, if there's anything at all that you would change?
You mean besides having a Chick-fil-A, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like, that's a given.
Yeah.
Chick-fil-A. Probably the one thing, and I come at this as a teacher, but probably the one thing I see is I wish there were more opportunities for, like, preteens and teenagers on evenings and weekends that aren't directly necessarily involved with school. They're not necessarily academic. They're not necessarily athletic. I love that we have a thriving Henry County Young Life, but I think more opportunities to give kids things to do, and more accessibility to activities, places to hang out that are safe and fun.
Yeah.
That would give. I think drugs are becoming more accessible, and I think we need to come up with some things to give kids to do besides that.
Yeah. I think that has definitely become sort of a problem. I think maybe not even just in Newcastle, like in lots of places, because even me, like, growing up here and like being a teenager myself, I've like started to experience those things, and like obviously I haven't like actually used drugs because that's not good. Yeah, but I've been like peer pressured to use drugs, and so I think that definitely there need to be things like more. I think also people need to be more educated about drugs and why you shouldn't use them and why it's a bad idea always. So yeah.
Right. And I'm not sure it's not a criticism at all, but I don't know that elementary, young elementary age is the age to talk about drugs, because at that point most kids haven't maybe started there and then continue it, talking about this is what can happen if you start, because it's a slippery slope once you start drugs.
Yeah.
And it's not a problem unique to Newcastle or Henry County. I think this is a nationwide problem.
Yeah.
But that's one Newcastle maybe we can do. And I don't have answers for that. I think it'd be good to have more things for kids to do.
Yeah, because definitely I think there is the DARE program, but I don't think but that's only in elementary school, so it'd be better if they like continue that through middle school and high school.
Yeah.
What are the similarities and differences of the old and present Newcastle?
The biggest differences I see when I would come to the big city of Newcastle when I was a kid, we actually lived closer to Newcastle than we did Hagerstown. So my mom did all of her grocery shopping in Newcastle, but I remember Broad Street, State Road 38. Broad Street was the hub of Newcastle at that time. We used to have shoes for McShirley Shoes and J.C. Penney and Sears, and it was store after store after store after store. And State Road 3 was not business. There were no businesses really on it. Now, for a while there, it kind of shifted. So all of the retailers are located on State Road 3. I think Main Street Newcastle has done a phenomenal job of bringing back activities back to Broad Street, bringing people back to Broad Street. Yard Park, 1400 Plaza, all of the activities that they do, the Christmas walk, the farmers market, all of those things, along with enticing businesses to come back to Broad Street, has been huge. There's so many things, like once it's not winter anymore, there's so many things in the spring through the late fall, even into Christmas, that are available to do on the weekends. The cruise-ins, the live concerts. So it's becoming the hub again that it used to be. But that's the biggest, as I watched that shift to 3, and then kind of, not completely shift, but expand back to Broad Street again, which to me is really exciting.
Yeah, I think that's great. Of course, I never experienced the original Broad Street, but I have experienced it now, and it's really fun to go to the Christmas walk and things like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
What is one important lesson you've learned in Newcastle?
This was hard to think about what one lesson would be. I'm not someone who really ever wanted to come back to where I grew up, because I really wanted to explore the world. But because of circumstances, I came back home, and I have been grateful every single day that I came back to this area. I love this area. Probably the biggest lesson I've learned, and this is going to sound kind of cliche, and I don't mean it that way, is it really does take a village to raise our kids. It takes our schools, it takes parents, it takes community members. It takes so much more than just mom and dad and grandma and grandpa, aunts and uncles. It takes everybody working together to positively impact our kids.
Yeah.
And I think that's the big lesson that I've seen, that I've learned.
Yeah, I think definitely that is so true, because I have definitely had a lot of adults that aren't in my family, in my life, like including you, that have definitely like shown me like important lessons and like definitely raised me like a lot. So.
Well, good. I'm glad we've had a positive impact on you.
Yeah. So we can end it if you want to.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay.